So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Okay, that wasn't the question.
CNN rips Kamala Harris with a brutal reality check. I know, guys, I couldn't believe it either, but a broken clock, I suppose, is right twice a day, and sometimes CNN will get the analysis correctly. Now, let's not give them too much credit for it, because keep in mind, and I think this is obvious, but it's worth saying, CNN only delivers these criticisms at a certain point when it gets so obvious how full of you-know-what they are, that they gotta taper it down a little bit and pretend that they're somewhat of an objective or unbiased news agency. It's pretty funny. But anyways, guys, we're gonna get right into it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But first, everybody, I need you to help me out, okay? Do me a big favor. Like our video, share it around, and if you're new, subscribe to the Resist the Mainstream YouTube channel so we can keep delivering you guys this great content. As always, everybody, I'm your host, Darian, and let's get into the video.
Vice President Harris began the debate by punting the first question on the economy.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America.
It went on from there. Despite the economy being the #1 issue facing the country, the sitting vice president generally reverted to talking points about a few of her policy proposals. Even Harris allies today are saying that she needs to talk more about what she will do for Americans if elected. Senator Bernie Sanders will be here in a second.
Something that I think is important to keep in mind here is that when these ABC moderators ask Kamala Harris these supposedly tough questions, like in that example you just saw, they only do so to put off this fake, let's just say, aura of being unbiased or neutral or in the middle or whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it was very obvious that they were running cover for her the entire debate. They didn't ask her tough questions on plenty of things that mattered. And the only reason now that they're even bothering to ask Kamala Harris about whether she thinks Americans are better than before or not in terms of financial status is because it's so obvious that this economy under Biden has been so terrible that even people who supposedly like the Democrats can't ignore it. That's the only reason they're asking it now. And believe me, it's not because they suddenly turned a new leaf and decided they're going to start being a little more fair. It's got nothing to do with that.
Talking about more about the need for her to fill in some of those blanks. On the border, another vulnerable issue for Harris, she also dodged.
Would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings.
Okay, that wasn't the question. When asked how she would break through the Israel-Hamas war stalemate, Harris said this.
We need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that.
Okay, but again, how?
As you can see, Kamala Harris has gotten so blatantly awful with her ability to answer questions and do so in a coherent manner that even CNN has to call it out. And believe me, it's not because they want to. This is just how they show, oh, we're a credible news outlet after all. Right. We remember what you did on January 6th. We remember what you did with the social media and all that stuff, encouraging the censorship. We remember all of it, CNN. So no one's falling for it. Now for some more Kamala Harris.
For transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she
taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this. Oh. And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then the end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
Taxpayer-funded gender care and transition surgeries for detained migrants. That sounds like a headline from a Babylon Bee article. Are you kidding me? What's so funny about this is if a conservative dared to suggest that this would happen, say, a few years ago, they would be mocked as ridiculous and a fearmonger and crazy and right-wing disinformation and all this other garbage. But it's a real thing, and Kamala Harris said she supported it herself. It's wild. Guys, this reminds me of that. Remember that PragerU video with Babylon Bee CEO Seth Dillon, where he talked about articles that were once parody and then became reality? Seriously, that's not a joke. Look into it. It's insane. One of the articles, for instance, was called 1 + 1 = 2 is racist, according to College Professor. And then essentially the exact same thing became reality just a couple of years later. I wish I was making it up and that I was just totally full of it, but I'm not, guys. It's real. Look into it. Yes, we have gotten that crazy, insane, and stupid as a country that math has now become racist, and that's the subject of debate with the left. It's wild.
Local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, you know, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants, and yet this, as you say, written and verbally. You know,
can't believe it.
What else, you know, did you find?
Well, let's take a look at her answer here on drugs. She got asked about, you know, the question from the ACLU was, since drug use is better addressed as a public health issue through treatment and other programming, will you support the decriminalization at the federal level of all drug possession for personal use? And Harris answers yes. Now, what would that mean? Well, it mean the federal all drug possession. That's not just marijuana, which she alluded to in her answer to this question, but it also would mean
it's federal level of all drug possession.
Fentanyl.
The only person who might like drugs a little more than Kamala Harris is Joe Biden. And frankly, he has to be on it because I don't know what he's smoking to print this much money and cause all this inflation, but something's going on, guys. It's insane. And that is why I have decided to partner with Goldco, and I think you should too. Why do it, you might ask? It's real simple, guys. As the value of the dollar keeps going down and down and down, the value of gold historically has gone up. So there is something to look forward to after all. So check it out, everybody. Go to rtmgold.com. You can click the link in the description or type in your web browser. You can roll over your IRA or 401k, penalty and tax free. Yes, it's not a joke. And you get a free gold kit too. Isn't that awesome? So everybody, check it out. rtmgold.com.
All crack, you know, cocaine, things like that. Yeah.
Have they responded to you on her changes on these issues?
So we did put this question to the Harris campaign about the entire ACLU questionnaire, and the Harris campaign didn't answer any questions from CNN. Instead, they just provided a statement from an unnamed Harris campaign advisor that just said, the vice president's positions have been shaped by 3 years of effective governance as part of the Biden-Harris administration. Now, they declined to CNN to elaborate on what those positions were. And then they also provided this statement, which they attributed to a spokesperson saying, as president, she will take that same pragmatic approach, focusing on common sense solutions for the sake of progress. So where does she stand on this, all this questionnaire today? We don't know, and they won't say.
There are people who are shooting up drugs in the streets all over the place. We see it at the gas station. We see it at the bus stop. We see it at the park where kids are supposed to be playing and enjoying themselves. But Americans don't even take their kids to parks now because it's so dirty and disgusting and full of crime. Hey, it's okay. It's effective governance by the Biden-Harris administration. Not to worry, it's no big deal. Does anyone buy into this stuff? Well, guys, that concludes our video for today. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Please be sure to comment below. Let us know what you liked about the video, what kind of content you want to see in the future, and we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks, and God bless.